Hello everybody, Maven here, and episode Heresy Act 3 is finally upon us, and that means new artifact mods, and with new artifact mods means new builds. So the first build I wanted to cover for Act 3 was the old Beyblade build. Who remembers that? For those who don't know, the Beyblade build is just essentially Strand Hunter that tries to spam the Whirling Maelstrom aspect, which transforms your Tangles into those whirling Beyblades that spin around the battlefield and just shred targets and seek them out. And with the new artifact mods, we can create even more Beyblades, so it gets a little bit crazy. So let's talk about it. Hope you enjoy. Shout out to our sponsor, Advanced GG, the #1 gaming supplement in the world. And they just dropped a brand new flavor called Sour Black Cherry. So if you'd like to try it out, or any flavor really, you can use code MAVEN at checkout for 10% off your order. Link down below. Thank you. So the artifact mod in question is called Vile Weave, which says that targets hit by our Tangle are severed, which is awesome because they'll do 40% less damage, but additionally, picking up a Tangle reduces Tangle cooldown. And I'll probably insert a robot voice here once I find my answer, but at base, Tangles have a 12-second cooldown before you can create another, but with this mod, they have a 10-second cooldown. Thanks, robot. And that's awesome because more Tangles means more Beyblades on the battlefield. And the awesome synergy with Beyblades and Vile Weave is that the spinning Beyblade still counts as Tangle damage at all times, meaning that it's severing every target it touches as it roams around the battlefield. And we just so happen to have another brand new artifact mod to synergize with that called To Shreds, which says that dealing sustained damage to severed targets unravels them. And defeating severed targets creates a Strand hotspot that grants woven mail when you pass through it, kind of like a sunspot. Additionally, this mod can be boosted by our Tome of Want, and it'll make unraveling projectiles do IDK % more damage to unsevered targets and IDK % more damage to severed targets, which is a nice little bonus. Thanks again, Mr. Robot. So To Shreds is awesome, massively increasing our uptime of woven mail to make sure that we're always 45% tankier, which is great for survival, but it's great that we don't need to rely on it to unravel targets, because remember that we still have our Act 1 and 2 artifact mods such as Unraveling Orbs to grant unraveling rounds whenever we grab an orb, and also give our Strand weapons a constant 5% damage buff, so that mod alone will make sure we can always unravel everything because orbs are pretty easy to come by in today's economy. But the creme de la creme of Strand mods that really juices it to the max right now is Horde Shuttle, which creates threadlings periodically whenever you deal damage to unravel targets with weapons. And pretty much everything will be unraveled at all times because our artifact mods and the fact that unraveling spreads like the plague. It's pretty effortless. So there's just threadlings all over the place, which you've probably seen in the gameplay, which are getting a 33% damage buff from Thread of Evolution. And when we boost Horde Shuttle with the Tome of Want, it'll make our threadlings sever. And that ties back into To Shreds, where defeating severed targets makes those Strand hotspots and gives you woven mail. So the consistency is through the roof because your threadlings sever, your Beyblade sever, and if that wasn't enough, your threaded spike melee sever as well. And the uptime on threaded spikes are great, not only because we have Gambler's Dodge to get them back, but we also have Thread of Fury to get them back. I know some people might think that that's a useless fragment, but I've actually found Thread of Fury quite consistent because you just get fed a bunch of melee energy as your Beyblades shred targets. So you'll often have an additional spike to throw in between those Gambler's Dodge cooldowns, which is quite nice. So the moral of the story is that everything is severed, everything creates hotspots, woven mail uptime is great, unraveling uptime is basically infinite, threadlings are everywhere, your Strand weapons are stronger, the gameplay loop is just extremely consistent because one thing ties to another, which ties to another, and it's like an infinite chain. And the same goes for any Strand build, not just the one we're playing today. But as for the one we're playing today, this is actually my Assassin's Cowl build. Some of you know it, and fun fact, I main this build religiously for the entirety of 2023. This build was my baby and I never took it off. To me, it just perfectly fits my playstyle. Grapple is my favorite ability in the game, and this build basically allows infinite grapples. The survival is good, the loadout isn't specific, so you can run whatever you want. This build was just a jack of all trades, and that's why I fell in love with it. So anyways, the Assassin's Cowl reads that powered melee and finisher final blows restore health and make you invisible. Amazing survival ability there. And yes, grapple does count as a powered melee. Yeah, it does use your grenade charge, but it does count as a powered melee. And like I said, this build basically has infinite grapples, not only because of Thread of Generation paired along with a handful of armor mods, which we'll get to in a bit, but the Widow's Silk aspect gives us an additional grapple charge and also makes a grapple point wherever we grapple. So I'll show you an example at Carl. If we're in an area where we know ads will be constantly spawning or where a chunky dude is, we can just use that first grapple to make a grapple point overhead and then use our subsequent grapples, which will be fully refunded because we'll be utilizing that grapple point. But additionally, if you grapple a Tangle, it will fully refund your grapple charge. So yes, as our Beyblade is roaming around, we can grapple it over and over again, which is kind of nasty for ad clear and saves you a lot of ammo. And now let's talk about our mod setup because it also greatly contributes to our grapple spam. So we have heavy-handed honor gloves, which makes an orb of power on powered melee final blows. And once again, grapple is a powered melee despite using your grenade charge, so it will make an orb. And it also procs impact induction to refund grenade energy on a powered melee hit. So essentially impact induction is just pre-nerf grenade kickstart, which is really nasty with grapple. And we're going to grab that heavy-handed orb on the spot wherever we punch, which will proc absolution and innervation on our boots to immediately give us back 12% of our grenade charge, in addition to some of our other ability cooldowns. So all these mods, in addition to max discipline and Thread of Generation and our loadout, is how we're able to have infinite grapples with this build. And that's why I fell in love with it and mained it for an entire year. But the version I mained was with Ensnaring Slam instead of Beyblades. That's the only difference. Fun fact, this is actually the first time I've ever used the Beyblades. So this is new to me and they're actually super awesome and I'm loving it, especially more so because they sever, which is just gross. Anyways, for the rest of the mods, I typically run Grenade Kickstart instead of Focusing Strike, but today I opted for a Special Finisher to use my Armor Charge instead, since we're rocking double specials. So we gotta make orbs for that, which we are doing with Reaper, Strand Siphon, and Heavy Handed. Then from the top going down, we got a single Special Finder mod, just because we have another brand new artifact mod called Gold from Lead, which gives you a chance to get heavy ammo whenever you collect a special brick. So that's a good enough reason to run at least one Special Finder on any of your builds. And then we got Dynamo, Melee Resist plus an Elemental Resist of your choice, Strand Reserves, Recuperation, and Bomber. And the last fragment I did not yet mention is Thread of Warding to get Woven Mail when we pick up an Orb of Power. But I am considering replacing this with Thread of Rebirth, and I'll let you know with some text on the screen or something if I did replace it or not after I've done further testing with the new Strand Hotspot artifact mod. But anyways, moving on to our loadout. Now, like I said before, part of the reason that I loved and mained this build for a whole year is because the loadout wasn't really specific and you could just really run whatever the heck you wanted, because the true power of this build came from the subclass and the mods and not the weapons you chose, so there was more freedom there compared to other builds. But to best synergize with our artifact mods and the theme of grapple spam, this is the loadout that I ultimately ended up on: the Call, Lord of Wolves, and the Marcado 45. The rolls on my Call and Marcado are exactly the same, which is Demolitionist and Golden Tricorn, both enhanced. Obviously, the Demolitionist is great for grapple spam, and they also get auto-reloaded when we grapple. And Golden Tricorn is an amazing perk for a grapple spam build, because in order to proc that second stack of Golden Tricorn and make it gain a 50% damage buff for 10 seconds, all you gotta do is get an ability kill, which, as you can probably tell, is really not hard at all to do with this build because we're pretty much constantly getting ability kills. So our Call and Marcado will always be mega powerful. In addition, we got an artifact mod called Heavy Ordnance Regeneration, so dealing damage with Machine Gun will give us a 25% damage resistance for 15 seconds, stacking on top of our Woven Mail. So we want to use our Marcado like a primary, and it'll turn us into a tank. It's very ammo efficient as it is, having the highest inventory stat out of all machine guns in the entire game, but you pair that with our Strand Reserves on our chest, as well as the new Gold from Lead artifact mod we talked about earlier, and your Marcado is basically a primary. And then Lord of Wolves is there literally just for DPS, which is something that we would otherwise lack. And for our stats, prioritize double hundreds in resilience and discipline, and dump the rest into mobility. And here's a snippet of all my artifact mods for those who are curious, and that about does it for the build. I highly recommend trying it out if you're a Hunter main, and perhaps share it with your Hunter main friends if you're feeling generous. It'd be greatly appreciated. And I'm honestly the most torn between all three classes that I have ever been. Like right now at the moment, Strand Hunter and Strand Titan are an absolute blast right now to play. They're so much fun. And Arc Titan and Arc Warlock are incredibly powerful in meta, and I've honestly been playing all of them pretty equally. I like to consider myself a Titan main, but I don't know, Hunter might win back my heart with this build because it's just so much fun, but we'll see. Anyways, as usual, I will leave the dim loadout link to the build down below in the description and also the pinned comment if you'd like to give it a try. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to hit the like button as it helps out a ton. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. Would love to have you here for more Act 3 content on the way. There's a lot in the works, so don't miss out. And remember to check out our sponsor, Advanced GG. Use code MAVEN at checkout for 10% off your order, link down below. And I will catch you in the next video. See you later.